Welcome to Real Sticks Guy, where the stuff you never learned finally makes sense. No fancy visuals, just real tips, real talk, and a whole lot of laughs. Let's get started. Imagine this. You buy a home in Florida. You finally get the keys, take a deep breath, and for the first time, you feel like you own something real. You walk through the front door, look around at the empty rooms that are now yours, and maybe you even do a little happy dance in the kitchen. It is your space, your home, your little piece of the world. You can paint the walls any color you want. You can hang up that ridiculous oversized clock you love. You can finally have a backyard barbecue without asking anyone's permission. Life feels good. You finally made it. But then boom, the property tax bill shows up. Again and again, every single year. It is like a bad penny you just cannot get rid of. Even when your mortgage is completely paid off and you own the place free and clear, the tax man never goes away. You might have thought you finished paying for your home, but surprise, you are basically renting it from the government forever. Now imagine a Florida where that bill just disappears. No more property taxes. Forever. No more annual dread opening the mailbox. No more wondering if your bill went up again. No more feeling like you are getting punished just for owning something. Sounds like a dream, right? Like winning a little lottery every year, you do not have to write that check. Well, Governor DeSantis and State Representative Chamberlain are trying to make that dream real. They are backing a bold plan that could eliminate property taxes completely, wipe them right off the map. Gone. History. And if it passes, it could change how homeownership works not just in Florida, but across the entire country. Other states could start looking at Florida and thinking, hey, maybe we could do that too. But hang on. Before you start planning how you will spend all that extra money, we need to talk. Because what sounds like a homeowner fantasy might come with a catch so big, so massive, it could break the entire system, like snapping a rubber band that has been stretched too far. In this video, we are breaking down how this zero property tax idea would work, what it means for you if you live in Florida or are thinking about moving there, and what could go terribly wrong if the numbers do not add up. Spoiler alert, some of these numbers are wild. So stick around, because by the end, you will know exactly how this could impact your wallet, your rent, your kids' schools, your favorite parks, and even your next vacation to Disney or the beach. This is not just about taxes. It is about everyday life in Florida as we know it. Let's start with why this is even happening. Florida already has a reputation as a low-tax haven. When people think about moving to Florida, they do not just picture beaches and sunshine. They picture no state income tax. That is a huge deal, especially if you are coming from places like New York, California, or Illinois, where the tax man takes a big bite out of every paycheck. In Florida, you get to keep more of what you earn. That is a huge reason why so many people move here every single year. The sales tax is pretty average too. It is about 7%, depending on where you are. Nothing crazy. And property taxes? They used to be fairly tame. The average effective property tax rate hovered around 0.8%, which is pretty reasonable compared to states like New Jersey or Illinois, where people can pay double or even triple that rate. But here's what happened. Florida's housing market exploded. Like rocket ship exploded. Since 2019, prices have jumped 66% statewide. That is not a typo. 66%. In just a few short years, home values shot up like crazy. In some cities, it got even worse. Taxes are up over 50% in a bunch of places. A homeowner in Tampa who paid around $2,300 in property taxes 5 years ago might now owe over $3,600, and that is without buying a bigger house or making fancy upgrades. Just the value of the property going up dragged the tax bill higher and higher. That is not a small jump, especially for retirees living on a fixed income, or for young families trying to make it work with daycare costs, car payments, and everything else life throws at you. Even longtime residents who thought they had a handle on their finances are feeling the pinch. And do not forget insurance. Oh man, Florida's insurance market is a mess. Premiums are now the highest in the entire country, up 72% in 5 years. Some insurers have even stopped writing policies altogether. Why? Because of climate risks like hurricanes, flooding, and rising sea levels. If your house is near the coast, good luck finding affordable coverage. It is like trying to find a snow shovel in Miami. It exists, but it is rare and expensive. So between skyrocketing property taxes and runaway insurance premiums, homeowners are feeling the squeeze from both sides. And politicians? They can see the writing on the wall. People are angry. People are scared. People are thinking about leaving. That is why Chamberlain posted on social media, "It is time. No more property taxes." It is not just a catchy slogan. It is a rallying cry. DeSantis called property taxes oppressive. And if you are getting hammered with higher bills every year, you probably agree. But, and this is a big but, here is the catch. Property taxes are not just some random fee that disappears into a black hole. They are how Florida funds a massive chunk of its budget. We are talking about $50 billion per year. That is billion with a B. Property taxes pay for schools, roads, police departments, fire stations, parks, libraries, all the stuff you use every single day, whether you own a home or you rent one. You cannot just erase $50 billion from the budget and expect everything to keep running like normal. That money has to come from somewhere. Kill property taxes, and suddenly, local governments lose about 38% of their revenue. That is not a small haircut. That is a full buzz cut. It is a game changer. So how do they make up the difference? The main idea on the table is pretty simple on paper. Just raise the sales tax. Right now, Florida's average sales tax sits around 7%. Depending on where you live, it might be a little higher or a little lower. But if you want to replace property tax revenue, experts say it would need to jump to 12% or even higher. Some say 13% is more realistic once you factor in growth and inflation. That would make Florida's sales tax the highest in the entire country. Yes, higher than California, higher than New York, higher than anywhere else. Let's make that real. Say you go shopping for groceries, clothes, or back-to-school supplies for your kids. A 12% tax on a $100 shopping trip, that is $12 in tax. Every time. Gas for your car, 12%. New sneakers, 12%. That adds up so fast it would make your head spin. And here's the real kicker. Sales taxes are what economists call regressive. That is a fancy way of saying they hit lower-income households harder. If you are making $50,000 a year and you spend most of it on groceries, gas, clothes, and daily stuff, a higher sales tax eats up a bigger chunk of your paycheck. Meanwhile, if you are a millionaire who saves a lot or invests in stocks, a higher sales tax barely makes a dent in your lifestyle. So while property owners might save thousands of dollars every year, renters and lower-income families could end up paying more overall, way more. It is like squeezing one side of the balloon and watching the other side bulge out. You might be thinking, wait, I do not even own a home. Why should I care? Well, if you rent, your landlord definitely pays property taxes. That is baked into your rent, whether you realize it or not. Take those property taxes away, and sure, maybe your rent stays flat or even drops a little. But if sales taxes go up, those costs could still trickle down. Landlords might raise rents anyway to offset higher costs for utilities, repairs, maintenance, or just because they can. Plus, businesses facing higher sales taxes might hike prices on services you use every day, like getting your car repaired, hiring a plumber, or even grabbing a pizza. Meanwhile, there is a bigger domino effect to worry about. Schools, police, roads. If funding drops and there is no airtight plan to replace it, those services might suffer. Imagine longer waits to get potholes fixed, fewer teachers in classrooms, fire departments stretched thin, libraries closing branches, emergency response times going up. These are not abstract possibilities. They are real risks. If you cut off a massive funding source and the backup plan is shaky, real people feel the consequences fast. So why even try this? Why mess with something so big, so risky, so fundamental to how Florida runs? Because the upside, if it works, could be massive. Like life-changing massive for a lot of people. For homeowners, no property tax means thousands saved every single year. Not just once, not just a temporary rebate. Every single year. If you own a $400,000 home and pay the average 0.8% property tax, that is about $3,200 you are currently shelling out to the government. Imagine what you could do if you kept that money instead. You could cover some of those rising insurance premiums that everyone in Florida is complaining about. You could finally build up your savings, take that vacation you have been putting off, or stash extra cash in your retirement account. You could pay down your mortgage faster, or hey, maybe just enjoy a little breathing room at the end of each month. No shame in that. For investors, the math gets even crazier. If you own multiple properties, say you are a landlord with 10 rental homes, those savings multiply fast. You might save $30,000 or more every single year. And investors are already paying attention. Florida has been a hotbed for real estate investors for years. Retirees, snowbirds, remote workers, everyone wants a slice of the Sunshine State. Eliminating property taxes could turn Florida into a magnet for even more investors. You might see a fresh wave of buyers from high-tax states pouring into Florida, scooping up properties like they are on sale. That sounds like a win, right? Well, maybe. But, and this is a big, but too many investors piling in could push prices even higher than they already are. That is already happening in places like Miami, Tampa, and Orlando. Locals who grew up there are finding themselves priced out. Teachers, nurses, firefighters, the people who keep a community running are struggling to afford homes near where they work. If property taxes vanish and investor demand explodes, home prices could skyrocket even more. Great if you already own a house, not so great if you are trying to buy one. And if at the same time, public services start getting cut because of lost funding, well, you could end up with a weird combo: higher home prices but worse quality of life. Fancy new condos everywhere, but crumbling roads and overcrowded schools. That is not exactly the dream most people have when they think about moving to Florida. So yeah, the upside is real, but so are the risks. And there is a twist. There is already a backup plan in the works. It is called House Bill 359, and it has been filed for the 2025 legislative session. Instead of eliminating property taxes completely right away, House Bill 359 would offer a property tax exemption on the first $100,000 of a home's value. So let us say you own a house worth $250,000. Under this plan, you would only pay property taxes on $150,000 of it. The first chunk would be tax-free. That would not wipe out property taxes entirely, but it would lower them significantly, especially for middle-class homeowners. You could see your annual bill drop by hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on where you live. And because it is a partial cut, not a full elimination, it would not gut local government budgets overnight. Cities and counties would still collect some property tax revenue to keep schools, parks, and emergency services running. Politically, it might be a lot more doable. Because here is the thing: to get rid of property taxes completely, Florida would need to pass a constitutional amendment. That is not easy. You cannot just pass a bill with 51% of the vote in the legislature. You need at least 60% of voters across the entire state to say yes in a referendum. That is a high bar, especially if renters, lower-income families, or anyone worried about rising sales taxes decide to vote no. A smaller move like House Bill 359 could be an easier first step. Give homeowners some relief, see how it impacts the budget, adjust if needed. Then maybe, down the line, push for a full elimination once people see it is not blowing everything up. Smart politics, baby steps. And let us not forget, Florida already spends around $14 billion a year on homeowner relief programs. That includes stuff like the Save Our Homes cap, which limits how much your property tax bill can rise each year. It includes exemptions for seniors, veterans, and disabled homeowners. It includes hurricane relief grants and special insurance subsidies. Could expanding these programs be a smarter move than nuking the whole tax system? Some experts think so. They argue that instead of blowing up the entire funding structure for cities and counties, Florida could just beef up the existing program, target relief where it is needed most, help retirees, help first-time buyers, help people struggling to keep up without setting off a giant economic chain reaction that nobody can fully predict. It is a fair point. Change does not always have to mean revolution. Sometimes it is smarter to tweak the system you already have. Here is what it all comes down to. Florida's property tax experiment could make homeownership way more affordable. For a lot of people, it could be the difference between barely scraping by and actually getting ahead. It could put real money back in people's pockets every single year. Money they could use to cover rising insurance premiums, medical bills, childcare costs, or just build up a little security for the future. In a world where everything feels like it is getting more expensive by the day, that kind of relief would be a game changer. If you are a homeowner, this plan could feel like a dream come true. Finally, a break. Finally, a reward for all the sacrifices you made to buy a home in the first place. No more worrying about your tax bill spiking just because the housing market went crazy. No more feeling like you are being punished for having a little piece of the American dream. If you are an investor, it could supercharge your returns. No property taxes means lower overhead, higher profits, and a stronger case for buying even more properties. It could turn Florida into an even bigger magnet for real estate investment than it already is. You could see an explosion of new developments, new neighborhoods, new rental communities. But, and it is a big but, if you are a renter or a public employee or someone who relies on state services like good schools, reliable police, or decent roads, this plan might feel like a gamble you did not sign up for. Because if the numbers do not work out perfectly, if the sales tax hike ends up hurting low-income families, if public services get stretched too thin, the people who can least afford it will feel the pain first. Imagine trying to put your kid in a school that is underfunded, overcrowded, and falling apart. Imagine calling for help during an emergency and waiting longer because there are fewer first responders on duty. Imagine seeing your favorite parks get run down or your streets filled with potholes because the city just cannot afford to keep up anymore. That is the real risk here. It is not just about taxes. It is about the kind of Florida we are building for the future. And here is where it gets even bigger. If Florida pulls this off, if they eliminate property taxes and the economy does not collapse, and services stay strong, and people are happy, other states are definitely going to notice. Tennessee, Nevada, and Texas are already income tax-free states. They are always looking for ways to stay competitive, to attract new residents, to lure businesses away from high-tax states. If Florida shows it is possible to ditch property taxes too, you better believe governors and lawmakers in those states are going to start having some very interesting conversations. Imagine a country where whole regions start operating without property taxes, where homeownership becomes a little easier, where retirees flock in even bigger numbers to sunny states with low taxes and low costs of living. It could happen. But, and there is always a but, if this experiment goes sideways, if it blows up local budgets, if it causes massive inequality between homeowners and renters, if it wrecks public services, Florida could become a cautionary tale instead. A big flashing warning sign to other states: proceed with extreme caution. Because the truth is, property taxes, for all their flaws, are stable. They do not crash in recessions the way income taxes and sales taxes sometimes do. They provide a reliable source of funding that keeps communities running even when the economy hits a rough patch. Replace that with a higher sales tax, suddenly your revenue becomes way more sensitive to economic ups and downs. If people spend less, the government collects less. That is a dangerous game to play when you are trying to fund things like schools and hospitals. So yeah, this is a big deal. Whether you are a homeowner, a renter, a public employee, a retiree, or just someone thinking of moving to the Sunshine State, this is worth paying attention to. Big time. So what do you think? Would you trade property taxes for a higher sales tax if it meant saving thousands every year on your home? Would you move to Florida if your annual tax bill vanished overnight? Would you worry about schools, police, and roads getting worse? Or would you say, hey, the market will sort itself out and homeowners deserve a break? We want to hear your thoughts. Seriously. Jump into the comments and let us know where you stand. There are no wrong answers here. Everyone's situation is different. Everyone's priorities are different. And if you want to know what happens next, especially with House Bill 359 on the table, make sure to hit subscribe. We are going to keep following this story, and we will break it all down for you as soon as there is an update. Florida is at a crossroads right now. Big changes are coming, one way or another. You are not going to want to miss how this plays out. Oh, and if you are curious about how other states are handling their own tax battles, check out our next video. Will Texas copy Florida's tax plan? Why? It's not so simple. Trust us, it is a wild ride.